It's almost the end of the alphabet here with the letter X. So I'm starting out by writing that X with a yellow marker, and now I'm tracing around it with a black Sharpie flip chart marker, so the outside is nice and dark. From a distance, that yellow will disappear and it's pretty much invisible. That's your basic block letter, but now I'm embellishing it a little bit. I'm making it giving it a little bit more interest and making the edges a little bolder with some wavy lines. And as you can see, this wavy line on the left side of the X that I'm drawing and coloring in right now is it's very wavy and very random. I really had no plan when I'm drawing this. I had no plan for this video really other than the letter X with wavy edges. You can plan out how you want your letters to look in advance, or you can just freeform it and have some creative fun with it. It really depends on the context you're creating in and how you want to use those letters when you get done. So it's fun to experiment if you have a sketchbook to just take one page per letter, draw nice and large like I'm doing here, and just experiment with them inside and outside the letter. So as you can see on this X, I created wavy lines on both sides of that X, inside of the X, and both wavy lines are quite different, and already it's created a nice sense of movement and some visual interest to that letter that otherwise was quite static and still and much thinner. Would have been much harder to read from a distance. So even though these lines are wavy and it may look like it's making the letter more difficult to read, it's making it much easier to see from a distance. As I mentioned in pretty much every video in this series, when you're creating things to be seen from a distance, you need to be sure they're dark enough and thick enough and bold enough to actually be seen. As I mentioned earlier, the yellow that I started with to create the initial X that I traced around at the beginning that yellow is going to disappear from a distance, which works in your favor if you're using it in this kind of context, but not if you want it to be seen. So that's just something to keep in mind whenever you are creating things to be seen from a distance. And now, as you can see, I've created some more waves on the other sides of the X, some inside, some outside, big and small. And for this one, I really like the sense of movement that's creating, the contrast between the very large and the very small bumps. And I am coloring those in nice and dark, and that's making the outside of the X much bolder, much darker. It's also creating a sense of movement, as I've mentioned so many times, which is important if you really want to draw people's eye to whatever it is that you're writing and whatever letters you're using. So there is a wavy edge, capital X. You start with a basic block letter and just get creative with it using those wavy lines, both inside and outside the letter if you choose. So hopefully that's helpful for you. It gives you a little bit more information and inspiration so you can go have some fun with your letters.